Want to rise above what holds you back? These are the stories of those fighting that battle. It might also be the story of you. I'm Dan Waldschmidt, author of Edgy Conversations and strategist of billion-dollar companies all over the world. This is Mark Minard, author of The Story of You, the guy who knows a thing or two about never giving up. You're listening to Elevating Beyond. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Elevating Beyond with a two-word mission statement: change lives. And look, as you notice, I'm not in the studio today. I have the honor of, I've been bothering this guy one. If you haven't recognized right here, I have next to the left of me, I know him as E.T. It's Dr. E.
It's E.T. Only doctor when I'm as a gig and I need to use my credentials.
And the one and only, and the soon-to-be New York Times best-selling author, Mama T, Vanessa Thomas. I had to say it so I could prove I wouldn't butcher it. Right. But seriously, everyone, this is really special because for all the listeners and everyone watching, as this has grown, I know a lot of people have heard your story, but it's so easy to assume that everyone has. So if you just want to kind of give them where it started from, and we can kind of take them along the journey that. Yeah,
I don't know where it started from because I was in the womb. But I usually
start.
Yeah, right. I usually like to start at 16 because I just feel like, as an adult, I look back and that was my personal journey. You have your parents who raise you and they have their dreams and their goals for you. But most kids, it's probably 18 because they graduate from high school, they go to college. So that's kind of where their journey starts. But my journey started at 16, leaving home and being homeless at 16. So it's kind of like, that was my growth period where it was like, okay, it's not a mom, it's not a dad, you're your mom, you're your dad, you're your adult, you're out here by yourself and you got to make it happen. So I think 16 years old was kind of like where the journey started for me.
And having mom here, and I'm in between them in case I'm just joking, there's a lot of love here. But
get your body. You should have a rep out there.
Mark's gonna get ready for you. Sierra,
you're on my side.
We have that type of podcast where we can pull people in. But I with having teenagers myself now, and also being through my own adversity, I can, not from a mom's point of view though,
Right.
I know from a dad's point of view, I've had some close calls where I was like to my son, but I knew he would come back in 2 hours. It's because where we live is different than than Detroit, honestly. It's different than where I grew up. But to let everyone know, from what I know from talking to you, it was, you got in trouble, you threw one party too many, and
one too many. I never heard it like that before, Mark. I like that. That's why I'm not a promoter. And your stepdad that you were raised thinking was your dad for a while, we could get into that too, but finally it was I think you cussed him out or something. And, throwing the beep words. I know you won't be dropping F-bombs on here. But teenagers, and you were like his mom, there's a lot about respect that I do think is important. And that's a tough lesson, but when he walked out that door, I know in the moment, you're, all right, if you do that, you can't come back. Now, what was it like after that for the next year?
Well, I never said he couldn't come back, but he declared that he would. He had enough. It was, I think I went in shock first because I hoped that what he said he didn't mean, and he was very angry. But after a while, in order to have some sense of sanity, I had to reflect on what I had done as a parent and what his adopted father had done as a parent, and said, for the first time, I think, I thought this, that most parents don't raise their kids like the animal kingdom, which prepares them for life. We love them. I had a lot of angst growing up, 1 to 14. It was poverty, it was a lot of ignorance, and not ignorant, but ignorance about life.
Sure.
So I had kept some of the gifts that had been bestowed on me, being 1 to 14, but more open-minded to expose my kids. So in my heart of hearts, I knew he had what he needed to survive. My hearts did not want to see my son leave.
Sure.
But I did not believe that he would sell drugs or go kill someone. But even when they're ready to go off to college, it's that same anxiety. They're away from you.
Yeah, where they could actually
get into it. Based on their friends.
Yeah.
They have a lot of sway.
So, your friends, how, going off of that, and just real quickly too, because from your perspective, did you know, like during the times when he was homeless for that period, had you heard that from anyone, or? Well,
I reached out to a couple kids on the block. They protected him in the earlier time, but once he left, he was with a group of kids that I didn't know.
Gotcha.
But later, I heard that, even though they were bad, if you will, by the sense of selling drugs and a lot of things, they never pulled Eric in to what they were doing. And that helped, because back in 70 or 88, it was a serious drug problem in Detroit. The gangs were out of control, and they were the big drug pushers.
Yeah, Detroit and Philly.
Yeah,
it's a real deal out there.
The thing that worried me, Eric has that personality where he could have been top of all of that. He'd have been a natural leader no matter where he went.
Could have been the kingpin.
He could have. He had the personality to do it.
Yeah.
And I prayed that he would never go over to that side because he'd have been successful with it.
It's interesting how amazing God, because he could have. Because obviously, I was actually doing pretty well, unfortunately, making a lot of money, living that life till I woke up in jail, thank God, But like you were angry though, but you were staying away from, you didn't turn towards the drugs and everything, but you turned away from the life of living at home. Absolutely. And we're just, read his book if you haven't read it's on here. He even has his mom holding it on the cover. I love that little double promo. But Secret to Success, get the whole story, listen to on Audible. But as you went through that, then I'm moving forward now, like a lot, went through your whole transformation, which always happens overnight, right? Overnight success,
overnight, man. Right. 10 years overnight, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's taken me 12 to become. Yeah, so after becoming a 10-year overnight success, you and your mom started to have a relationship throughout that, but you'd be speaking, and you mentioned God before too. I was kind of, did you raise it, because I know you talk about going to the church and that pastor that spoke into you. Did you talk about God in your house much?
Oh, we talked a little bit, but we didn't, we visit church, but we weren't what you call, went to church regularly. But we were raised with the Bible principle.
Okay.
My great-grandmother especially taught us, about faith and honor and all of those principles. So that helped.
Yeah. Okay. So then over time, now you're a successful author. You're all over. Go to YouTube, type in Eric Thomas. He's everywhere, working hard, doing so much. For you, from the parent side, then there's, okay, now I went from homeless, I've got my high school, my GED, my high school degree, which is a huge accomplishment, and then college degree, which is no one around me I know where my two roommates, which unfortunately aren't alive any longer, were like calling me a sellout when I said I was going to go to college. Like people like us don't go to school. And so like it's those levels, those steps, but then doctor now, speaking all over, how did that, like I'm always curious about this, affect your faith at a point to see that Eric was be talking about, because you're open about God all the time, and to be like, I'm doing this, Mom, and you're like, but you have this great job, you have a master's degree, you're teaching, you're a worried parent.
Well, because of the era I'm from. I'm a baby boomer. We were tried and true. You get a job, you're in it for your 30 years in the gold watch and the pension. And so that structure and that idea that every month you got an income. And then my grandson had asthma and he needed good insurance. So from a practical point of view, and then my father was a product of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
I had a totally different mindset.
Sure.
Structure, they're going to take care of you, which they don't anymore anyway. But at that time, I thought, take the sure thing, not take a chance.
And when you say, and to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of people that still don't understand that. And to be honest, let's be really honest, it is taking a chance.
Of course.
Because I started my company in the recession. It's because people, you see on Instagram and everything, people see this like right now, and they're like, I want to be, Mark has a business, now he's with Eric Thomas and visiting with him, and it's a chance. They don't see the nights of the tears of my wife and I when I had to have $20,000 to meet payroll for all my team. We put our mortgage to make sure everyone gets paid. They don't see those like literal tears. I spent a lot of nights like crying to God in my office.
Yeah, no question.
I can imagine.
But it was God, like, because you talk about God a lot. That's what would kind of continue to come. My why would connect to other things, but I'd continue to feel this pulling. And I'd be like, okay, God, like even with this and speaking, I dropped speech class. When I was doing good with, and I'm not trying to make this about me, I'm just trying to,
absolutely.
like, we serve special needs. I'm growing, it's still growing a lot, and he showed me speaking, and I'm like, come on, like, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah, that's right.
See,
Absolutely.
you said it. I didn't have Eric's vision, and he didn't ask me what to do, he asked my opinion. And I did say later, even before he took me to Australia, that I'm so glad he didn't listen, because it wasn't my dream. And I can only give advice based on my own experiences. And I didn't know anybody that was an entrepreneur except maybe the insurance man. And they were worrisome. They would come to your house every week. So I couldn't give him real advice because I had not had that in my experience.
And I think, and I'm not insurance, whatever you do is great, but I think there's a different type when you do something that's never been done before. It's like a whole other type of, because you can follow it, like you can get a franchise, and I have the utmost respect, like my good man Greg Walker owns a bunch, but he says, he's like, it's not this, I didn't start it from scratch, because also you didn't know the how. You're like, Mom, I have this, what was your first, what was that conversation like? Like, what were you telling her?
Well, what's weird about the conversation is, it's, you know what you want to do. I think it's almost like a cosign thing. You look for a cosign, but it's like you already know what you want to do. But for me, I think is a struggle, because even when you talk about me being in the streets, it's always I'm going to do what I think I want to do, but I also was raised a certain way, so I do have some principles. So I'm trying to. It's that dichotomy. I'm trying to do, both at once. So it's not like if my mom tells me she doesn't like it that I'm going to stop doing it. But I'm hoping that. For the sake of, like energy, one accordness, unity, I'm hoping I'm going to say it, and she's going to be like straight, so that way I don't have to deal with maybe any of the negative, because for real, if somebody you love says no, you kind of carry that thing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like that negative energy, like, man, they don't, you know what I'm saying? But actually that negative energy was great, because part of the test and part of saying, all right, cool. I have to now prove to everybody, and not in a bad way.
No.
Like I have to prove that this thing works. So because I know if it works, you're not going to be negative. Like you're not negative for negative sake. You're negative because you really feel like it may not work, you know? So for me, it was like, all right, good. I feel you. I'm even grateful that you talked about the stability part because I do need to get insurance for my son and I do need to get insurance for my wife. And I remember getting insurance and feeling like, yo, I really made it because when I was getting the checks, that was cool. But once I got the insurance, my wife and my mother, it was like, oh, it's my mother-in-law. They always like, it's real now. You got insurance. So
but you want, and everyone listening and watching, it's okay to we're all human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in people that have seen your stuff, like you're up there, you're yelling, it's grind and all, which is true.
Yeah.
But you go through the fear, you go through the doubt.
Yeah,
we go through it.
Yeah.
But also because people will ask like, how do I really find that? And I know there's different like techniques to give, but it's kind of like, I don't know how to tell. You have to have. Keep going, and anyone like I was in jail, you were home, like the fact that we're all sitting right here is proof that there's a lot of people smarter than me that can do this, but you have to go through. Your mom or your dad, my parents were worried about me, and I remember at a point I'm like, I love you to death. For a while, when we talk, we can't talk anymore about my company because it was the recession, and they'd be like, "Did you watch the news? I'm too busy. What if this happens?" And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't. Oh, geez.
I don't know. I never thought about that. I never thought that far. You know, somebody asked me yesterday. They said to me, "E, how do you know, like, legitimately, like your parents said no? You know, your pastor might have said no." You know, your wife or husband said no. Like, how do you know when to quit? You know, because they was like, yo, this is what I think I'm called to do. But like, at what point do I abandon this because I'm not seeing the results? And I said to that individual, there's one thing I can tell you, no matter what has happened to me as it relates to this gift or this ministry, whatever you want to call it, a calling, that my heart was always in it.
Yeah.
And so I said, once your heart is out of it, then you need to get out of it. You know, so but if it's just you don't have no money, but your heart is still in it, you feel it like this is, you know, so for me, I'm homeless, high school dropout, whatever, college, got kicked out of college on academic probation, took 12 years. My heart was never like, I don't want to finish school. Like, even though I got this challenge, then once I took school serious and was killing it, then I had a financial challenge and I didn't have money for school, you know? So it was like, hey, E, but my heart never said, I'm out. I don't want to do this. So I think as long as your heart is in it and you're able to put forth that 120% effort and passion, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes like when I always say never give up. Like I've thrown in the towel a lot. And God's like, pick it back up, dude. Wipe yourself off. Like, all right, I'll wake up and start again. But then I'll get like something from someone. It may be an email or something that right at the right time too that just reminds me. It's not even money. It'll be an email that'll come and they'll be like, I was going through a really dark time. And I was listening to your show lately because I'm so busy with my other companies. I was thinking for a while, I don't know if I want to keep doing it. And I get that email, and then that's where God's like, it's not about you.
That's it.
Like, it's not about, you don't get to give up.
That's it. You don't get to give up. I like that.
You can use that.
I like that. I like that a lot. I don't get to give up.
You don't. But what I love about this, like the ripple effect is, what people don't see is now look, because of that, and there's been a long process there, you see it takes time, all of a sudden your beliefs start to change. Because people say, what can I do for my friends, my family that don't want to change? And I know I had this, like, unfortunately they're both dead. And I always say the best thing you can do is with love, be the best you. And they might not tell you, it might take decades, but the light shining through you, like my dad admitted, it made it 10 years later. He's like, I was worried all the time. He said, my faith in God is stronger because of you. And I see this now.
Well,
And you have a
when
book.
I saw that our relationship was healthy, it would stutter and peter out. And a lot of it was my values. Like, to me, he was disrespectful because I'm old and you know the rules.
Yeah.
But what I learned later was we don't always see the other person's perspective because we're so into what we think is best that we've got our tunnel vision going. But Eric was going to Bermuda one time. This was early in his career. And he called and said, Mom, do you have a passport? And I said, yeah, I got one. Why? And he said, I'm going to Bermuda to speak to the school system. And I want you to speak to the parents. I'm like, you gotta be joking. You want me to speak to the parents, I said?
That's cool.
And it just touched my heart because Eric knew that I have a kind of a tough love approach. And that, do you want me to really talk to these parents and tell them what to do or what they're doing wrong? And of course, when I first came, they were really upset. But as we talked about what you had a woman who had a 32-year-old who's still fussing about cleaning up his room.
How old?
32, still at home.
Oh.
And I said, you can learn something from the animal kingdom because if you were a cat, they're going to tell you, eat the bird, how to catch the bird. If you're a bird, they're going to tell you how to avoid the cat. But as parents, we love our kids so much, some of us, we don't raise them or we enable them.
Yeah.
And that I understood that Eric was upset because his friends were all enabled kids. They had everything. But the parents didn't have structure and they didn't have rules.
Oh.
And so, who wouldn't want to be like this kid? Or instead of a kid got to shovel snow when the father's out there doing it, or the kids didn't. One kid was in 5th grade, his parents still tying his shoes because they loved him. He wasn't special. They would just, honey, let me tie your shoes.
Yeah.
Now, and then I'm telling him he'll pull up weeds in the yard.
Can I get my shoes tied? I just want to get my shoes tied, Mark.
Yeah, well, and at the time, as a kid, and to be honest, we all do our best with what we have, and we can always learn more and be better versions. I'm not going to sit here right now and say I haven't screwed up at times with my kids, but I'm always learning to be better. And
if you're open-minded, but if you're doing, like, okay, I'm going to give an example. I'm number 4 out of 14. My youngest sister is about 8 weeks younger than Eric. And so for my sisters, some enabled their kids to a fault, and they're smart, but they're not doing anything because we didn't get a lot of physical love. But how can you? You have 14 kids. But they said, well, we're going to do everything that mom didn't do. But they got a different set of serious problems. And they blame her still some kind of way, and I don't know how they do it. Or, like me, I took some of what my mother did and kept.
Yeah.
Some I flipped over because they were like, if she went left, I'm going right. But you have to have an open mind. And then sometimes you got to get off the block, because if you don't get off the block, how do you know?
That's so true. It's like it takes a village to raise a child, but then it takes the child leaving that village, I really think, to become a man.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't see any movies where the kids stayed in the village.
Yeah.
Like, not even Lion King.
Right.
You know, like they don't stay in the village and then become. It's like they do have to leave the village and go through, you know, whatever their metamorphosis is, you know, whatever, you know, find their sensei, you know, go through their process, and then they're able to come back to the village and they're able to build a village. And I think, Mark, that's the tough part, is because a lot of people, you know, for real, we don't want them to leave the village because we're not sure what happens when they leave the village. You know, like we can't control them as much when they leave the village. You know, and some kids, for real, don't come home from the village. So we're constantly like, you know, whoa, a little bit afraid, you know, but you got to get to that point where you're like, you know, this is the process. So you can't usurp that authority. Like, you can't mess the process up. And I think, for myself and for friends of mine that I know that our success was like we had to do and everybody's is different, but mine was homeless. And, I feel one of the things that makes me a phenomenal speaker is my humility, is that I'm not arrogant. But it was homelessness that really broke me. It was homelessness that really taught me, okay, this is where you really are, and this is where you think you are. This is who you think you are, this is who you really are. And so it was during that time frame, I got to speak to Eric alone. And a lot of people don't ever get to be alone. I looked at my daughter, she's a different child when my son left. And there were some things about her that I didn't even know when my son was there, because the two of them were kind of together. So I never really saw her. It was like the two of them. So once he left, I was like, I didn't even realize that you had this challenge or this challenge or this challenge because you lived in your brother's shadow. So I was fortunate when I was homeless, I got to talk to Eric. I got to find out what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were. And then as an adult, I got to choose, do you want to fix this? Do you want to repair this? Do you want to take care of this? Do you want to wait for another 5 years to get to this because it's too tough? And so I think that's what makes that metamorphosis process so important, is your authentic self comes out when you go through that particular process.
Yeah, and you talk about going through that process, that metamorphosis, and that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to it's so much easier to stay, and people are giving advice from the best knowledge that we have, and then kind of going into some of the forgiveness part on both ends. I was going to ask that. That's why I'm sitting.
Yeah. I'll start.
It's a beautiful thing, though.
And my mom said something that was, that was deep to me once. But I think for me, when you're going to church every week, 2-3 times a week, I was in college. It was a theologian, a seminary, if you will, to some extent. And so when you're going before, these great messages, it's pricking your heart. You know what I'm saying? You're hearing them talk about, the love of Christ, God forgave forgave us, what I'm saying? That, we should have everlasting life, and you're seeing these skits and you're hearing all these songs, right? And what it's doing is, as callous or cold as I might have been, it's like every week it's chipping it, it's chipping it to the point where it's like, okay, now you got to do something about what you're hearing. You just can't hear, who goes grocery shopping and doesn't buy anything, and so it's like, you're listening, now you got to do something. And so
I think we're accountable.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because that was I believe we're held responsible for what we know.
Absolutely.
It's at a certain point, now you know this, you don't have an excuse to keep doing it.
Yeah, because before, when I was angry, I was not being held accountable for my thoughts. These are my thoughts. And when you are not going before somebody else, it's like, these are my thoughts. And actually they feel I feel justified. I'm not even thinking about my thoughts, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a certain way, and I'm not thinking about how I'm thinking. I'm just thinking that way.
Yeah.
When you start going to church, you start listening to the praise team or choir or whatever, you start hearing what they're saying, and then you start adding that or measuring that to what you're thinking. And it's like, whoa, that's not I'm coming to church and loving church, but the basis of it is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. That's what the core message is. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So whosoever believe in him, they should have everlasting life. He's forgiving you for what you've done. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, you're saying, not only you're hearing it, you're now going out and speaking it, yes. But you're not doing what you're saying. And you have to do what you say if it's going to have power. That's the difference between theory and practice.
Yes.
Theory, you can hear it, but practice means you're actually taking what you're learning and you're doing something. But to be honest, long before my mom, I had to take personal responsibility. Before you can really forgive somebody, you got to forgive yourself. Yeah. And so for me, it was you were homeless. You did that to yourself. You didn't have to do that. You came to college, because now I'm in college now.
Yeah.
And so the mistakes I'm making on the streets, the mistakes I'm making in college have nothing to do at home. And I'm still making mistakes. So I used to think, well, if I leave the house at 16, then I'm good. But I still had the same problem. And so I tell people all the time, this is how you need to change. No matter what environment you're in, I don't care who you're dealing with, if you're seeing some of the same problems, I don't care if it's the same job, it's relationships. If you keep seeing it and you in it, and the other person's not, that you said was the problem, and they're not in it, but you still having the same, so it's like, okay, E, you're still having some of the same challenges, you're still forgetting stuff, you know what I'm saying? You're still not being responsible, you're still procrastinating. All right, you're gonna have to forgive you because you let you down. And then once I was able to deal with Eric and say, okay, Eric, now you need to go back to college, like because you messed up, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. At that point, then I was able to say, all right, who else do I need to forgive? All right, and for me, forgiveness is not, I hear a lot of people say, you know, forgiveness as, I gotta forgive that person. To me, I don't really buy into that. Like if somebody dies and you didn't get a chance to talk to them, like your whole life can't be held up because they're gone.
Yeah.
I just feel like if that person's alive, you can go talk to them. You can talk to them about your process of forgiveness, like in your mind, what that means to you.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
You can write a letter, like I think you talked about before,
Yeah.
Write a letter even and get it out and read it at the
For you though, that's what I'm saying.
It is. It's like
it's therapy for you. So when you say I gotta forgive you, no, I don't have to forgive you as the human. I have to forgive you in terms of my perspective and my mind and how I perceived what I was going through. Because I had a lady tell me the other day, I spoke and she was like, I want to talk to you. And I didn't even, I was like, okay, what you want to talk about? She's like, well, we need to talk. And then she had a stern look on her face after a presentation. And I was like, okay, I'm confused. She's like, I have art with you. And I was like, art? I was like, do I know you? I was like, I don't know. You can't have art with somebody that you don't know. She said, I have art with you. I said, art? I don't even know you. It's not possible for you to have art with me when I don't know you. She's like, well, you said some stuff that, you know, I debate. I said, you can't debate my testimony. This is my life. I'm telling you my experience. You can't debate my experience. So I think when people say I have to forgive, sometimes they take that the wrong way. So for me, it just means, the how I perceived it, what I thought, what I was going through, because I wasn't like sexually abused or physically abused. So I'm not, you know, if somebody does that to you, that's one thing. That didn't happen to me. But I had to forgive myself, and I had to forgive my concept of what I thought, what my expectations were. Like you didn't meet my expectations. You didn't do the stuff that I thought you should do. And I need to let that go. And then I need to move on in terms of our relationship from this point forward. Clearing the expectations up, knowing, oh, okay, what do you expect? What do I expect? Okay, we're gonna move from here, and then I'll never get angry with you. Why? Because I don't have no expectations. Like, you can't get mad at somebody when you don't have expectations, and I don't mean like you lower your standards.
No,
I just mean I don't put what I think you should be doing on you, and you don't put what you think I should be doing on you. We just determine what this relationship should look like, and then we move from that point forward.
And you're not dragging the weight around all the time, so you're doing your other stuff. And it's like an elevator. You can't go to that next level because that weight's holding you down. And that's kind of where it is for you. You let it go because it's amazing that it's worked out this way. But I've seen other cases where people have to forgive and their dad's on death row or something, and they can't even talk anymore.
That's right.
But it was still for them. Like, I let it go. I've given it to whatever they believe in. Usually it's I let it go to God, and I don't have aught with that because I've never not seen someone that has flourished themselves.
Oh, right afterwards.
From doing that.
Well, one of the things that Eric talked about, getting pricked by going to church. It was the opposite for me. Not the church part, but I had so many people that came to me to, you know, Eric was ungrateful. He was, you did everything for him. And I had to tell him, look, the problem I'm having with my son, his father don't have that problem. He was never in the midst of it, even though they had the confrontation. His heart was fine. He said, I was a good father. Eric's going through his go-through. I'm not upset. Whereas I was upset, and I suppose in the early beginning, my family, especially on both sides, kind of knew about the drama. But I had to say, don't come to me no more. I don't want to hear your opinion because I'm stressed out. And they were working, not deliberately, but you can actually make someone hate someone when you're constantly bringing up negativity. So I had to quit talking to people, but I internalized it. But then I had the sense to get therapy. So people come to this, come to a medium point their own way, but you do have to come to something, even if it's just let go and said, you know what happened, happened. But it was very difficult, people choosing sides. And I literally had to just remove myself from that, because I didn't want to lose my son. And even though we had problems, and it was in therapy that I realized that my perception as a parent, and that's what I really speak about in the book, is not their perspective.
Yeah.
And that you do what you think as a loving parent, and you do things that you know are going to bring them to a better place when they're adults. But when you have these secrets, and they find out, and they always do.
Yeah.
And then the secret that people have is like 10 levels deep. It's never, you know something about me. It's that you know something about me, but you know something else that I don't know, that this one knows and don't. And I'm telling you, getting rid of secrets, and there's a difference between private, personal, and secret.
Sure.
Some things are personal that do not need to be shared, but a secret is always negative, because you're withholding something that will potentially harm someone with them not having the knowledge. And it was in the therapy that I started to see, I could understand his view, because I had done some things as a parent to expose him to certain situations, but not told the whole truth about it. And not knowing that the other parties would share something with him. But then as Eric, loyalty, wouldn't share that he knew certain things because he didn't want to hurt me. So it was just a mess that didn't have to happen. And so it's a cautionary tale.
Well, it's like the beautiful struggle though, because again, I'm looking at, we're all sitting here now, and it could have been easier for when it started being, okay, I'm not going to put that in the book. I know it's going to upset, but you know how many millions of lives have been helped through, from both perspectives, that have been going through something like that. And that's again where it's like, it's not about you, it's always the harder thing. But you were upset. Didn't at one point, like, you tell Eric, like, you were upset at him for throwing you all your information out there?
Oh yeah, I was real salty, but when he told me the book was already published, he mentioned it. Okay, then I'm gonna use that term. He mentioned it. And of course I was, because it had gotten out all the things that had happened with the 3 families involved.
Yeah.
But it was only years after that more stuff came out. But I was working corporate America.
Yeah.
I left Chicago when I married. Came here, it was like a do-over. People knew who needed to know if I met a young girl with a baby. I had people that I always, went out to and supported. We owned property, a 2-flat. We always ran into single moms. And someone helped me. But I was not telling it openly. I just had my crew. And now I know who followed Eric. He's very popular. And who's gonna know at Ford Motor Company that I'm working with every day, and I know, girl, did you hear? It's like, I'm a baby boomer again. We were raised to be private.
Yeah.
And that was a double-edged sword, because that privacy, secretness, harmful as well.
It's through having you come out and speak. He's been on my show. I remember something he said when writing his book. The advice you gave him was, don't leave anything out. When it comes to sharing your story, don't hold back. And I remember when I was writing my book, I had a whole story of going against the whole state of Ohio at age 26 to open our company for special needs. I had to get a law change. That could have been but something's like, you got to talk about the jail part. And I remember I did it, and I'm like, I'm not, and I remember thinking, because it's not just the baby boomers. I just want everyone to know, everyone goes through this. Like, and I remember worrying, what are people going to think about me? Because I built this, and I thank God every day that I put that in there, because it was the opposite. It gave everyone, and I realized back as a kid, that was where so much of my anger and stuff and jail came, is I thought I was such a loser. I didn't get straight A's, and I thought the successful people were the ones that didn't go through that adversity. And so then by me not sharing that, because I was thinking, had I read what I was writing, that would have helped me. Because I would look at us three right now at that age and be like, they must have never had a struggle. They must have just been, you know what I mean? Like, that's the way and I think a lot, and it shows like at all different ages, as we go after something that's really out of our comfort zone, that's more in our heart to do. Like you sharing your book.
And the book is about being a teen mom, 17. Pregnant when my mother was pregnant.
Yeah.
I left home. I didn't know my father until I was probably in the 5th or 6th grade. And being a single mom back then is more difficult because there weren't resources. But how, again, looking at some of the hardships that I had been raised around, that helped me say, I don't know what I want out of life, but I know for sure it's not this life. And just knowing that, how many of my friends end up on crack or heroin back in the day, and how I was able to navigate that, because the people that were on the crack, I stayed away from. So by default, sometimes you fall forward.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. So true. It sounds like that you've had like a good kind of intuition of sort of, and I don't know, because we all learn our own journeys, but to kind of like pull away from some of that negativity, because like you were around the drug dealers and stuff, living with them, but still something in you's like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. So what happened, and what has happened to me up to this point, for real, man, I'm wise enough to know what works and what doesn't work. And I think a lot of people get so caught into their emotions and their feelings. And that was one of the things that I realized as I was going through, this spiritual, awareness. It's like, this works, this doesn't work, So for me, when I look at people in the community who are selling drugs and who are doing certain things, I'm like, that's only gonna take you so far. Like, I never met nobody who retired. I never met somebody who, somebody like my other boys hated my boy because he was doing better than they were doing, and I just saw, just watching movies and going through life, hate. And so even when I wrote my book, I had gotten to a place in my life where I was like, look, this is not about my mother or my father. Like, this is not about what happened to me. Like, this is about all the people who've gone through what I've gone through, understanding. So that's why for me, I started at 16, and I gave you one glimpse of something that happened in my home, but I didn't talk about me at 8 or 9 or 10. Like, I didn't think it was necessary. Like, I don't need to drag my family, in the mud. Like, I don't, that's bad karma. So I don't want that coming back to me. You know what I'm saying? But I need to start you where I made a mistake. I'm showing you I messed up. Here were the consequences to me messing up. I left home, and I'm showing you, like, I made it as if this was the bad thing. No, I kept messing up, and I had to make some adjustments, So I think it's important for people to realize, whether you write a book or whatever you're doing in life, is that these are the things that you do that are going to be a blessing. These are things that are going to be a curse. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Yeah. So for me, it's like, if you're speaking, when I say give your heart, I never forget. I don't know if it was, I think I watched Nelson Mandela, the movie, and I remember saying to myself, like, one day I'm going to die. And the last thing I want is the 20 or 30 years I was a speaker that I half did it. Because I'm going to be dead much longer than I'm going to be alive. And I don't want my content to be screwed because I was worried about what John Bob thought. Well, John Bob and I both going to die, but this message is going to live on. And I want kids to get the essence of the message. So I can't be sitting here worried about what he thinks or she thinks or they think. I have to be pure to what is the motive for why you're doing what you're doing? Yeah. What do you seek to accomplish? And go for it, E. And then here's the deal. When you get older anyway, it's like, who cares if 50 million people like you or not? Like, you way past like. Right. But of course, you still have to do content where people are going to embrace that content. So for me, when I did the content, I'm just thinking, what is another 16-year-old going through? What is an 18-year-old going through? Yeah. What are people going through in life? And make sure you share enough of your story that whatever. So we got a mixtape coming out again, or whatever you call it. I don't think it's a mixtape now. I think it's might be called an album.
What is it called? So
yeah, I think it's an album, not because you charge.
I'll get the.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll get the link and put it in the show notes.
They charge. So, but I think it'll be out in the beginning of the year. But C said he and Nikki were listening to it and they were in tears. And I'm like, that's what that Nikki listens to my stuff every day. CJ listens to my stuff every day. So if you're crying and you listen to me all the time, then that means that it's timeless, that is moving you. And that's my job. My job is not necessarily to, tell you how I feel about my biological father or my father who raised me or my mother. That's not my job, is to tell you how I feel. My job is to make you feel. Yeah. Because when I make you feel, then I'm going to transform you. If you felt what I said, that means you reflected. I got to your soul. And if I can get to your soul, I can make you change. Now, if I make you go, yeah, E, that's right, you may not necessarily change because you root me on. But if I pierce your soul in any kind of way, then that is going to convict you to change. So for me, when I wrote the book, my mom said when I asked her to come to Bermuda, even this book project we did, it wasn't about I need something else to do, I need something else to invest in. For me, it was, you have something that can benefit a group of people, especially in this era where women aren't necessarily, like, I always hear people say, E.T., Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar. Like, you don't really hear them talk about the female speakers, that are killing the game, or who are writing books, who are changing the world. So for me, it was like, we really do live in a time where women are still, for whatever reason, marginalized. And as a result of being marginalized, they're not necessarily getting the information they need to get to that next level. They're kind of just settling and saying, well, this is my situation, I'm gonna stay in it. So I was like, yo, Mom, I think it would be great to do a book, because I really think, not just the book is gonna be important, but hopefully the book will launch a curriculum or a podcast, a speaking career where other women can be empowered, absolutely coaching, et cetera. So I really, really believe that when I said, let's do this project, that you don't want to die and leave all of that great content and all of the great information and insight. You don't want to leave that in you. You want to be able to get that out so that other people can benefit from it. Yeah, it's so true. And with what you've been through, and it takes courage to be transparent. It's the opposite, where people think like the valiant ones never admit they're wrong. That's not true. No. The courageous ones are real.
It's true. When I gave it thought, it was like, you've been doing this anyway. Right. You've helped so many young women undercover. You should be proud. Absolutely. You were raised in abject poverty, and you got this life. Yeah. You fell down, you were on welfare, you were estranged from my son's biological father, but we kept going. I didn't dwell in the past. I never felt a victim. I never felt like it was his fault if we did, his biological father's fault if we didn't make it. It's like, it's your job, and it's your moral obligation. You know some things that were wrong, and I had an ability to discern. So it's no excuse for me, because I could tell you, if you do 1 and 2, you're going to get 3, then why are you doing it? You better do 1 and 4 and get 5. But most people settle. Wasn't easy. We got through the single parentness, the being alone, and I'm ready to share that, because we can, women can, and even if you have to do it alone, you don't have to be in abject poverty. You can have a better life for you. You owe your kids a better life. Well,
I'm looking forward to this, because going off what you just said about the women and where some of them are, the opportunities there,
Absolutely.
It goes back to
Absolutely.
It goes back to seeing examples of you doing this, sharing your story, and you never know it again, like it's not about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
You never know. It could end up being you that is the one that's like all over the world. You could be bigger than E one day, or it could be the ripple effect that could reach Sierra. And because but I'm being serious though, because you saw this, it made you think, wow, I can have a book, I can help other. And that's where, we've all heard the story of like when the record for the mile was broken, and then once that happened, it was impossible, it's been used to death, but
it's real.
it's true though.
It's still true.
And for women, it's the same. It's not like the opportunity is there, and I know a lot of women that are way smarter than me and can be doing.
But see, this is the problem. A lot of for women like me, even in today, there's a little level of shame. And it may be shame we place on ourselves, and that's why we're not open about it. It was for me. I should have been proud to share all the milestones. I got kicked out of school, but I managed to graduate. I didn't go to college, but I ended up working for a company that encouraged me to go to college and paid for it. I was just closer to 40 when it happened. And these women need to see that don't be ashamed.
That's it.
Be proud and tell somebody, grab somebody and say, girl, look, I ain't saying it's easy, but you can do it. And look, let me tell you what I've been through. Because you can't tell by looking at a person what they've been through.
So it's never too late
It's
to
never.
start not giving up.
I'm writing a book I finished this book, I was almost 65. Well, actually, I had turned 66 when I finished it.
Look at that. Published author.
Should have been in college in 1970,
Nice.
and I didn't go to college till probably 89. But I went. I finished.
Well, I don't know how many of your professors are authors, but I know my creative writing professor told me I have no understanding of what it takes to be an author.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I finally started after jail like a thing for that. And when my book hit the bestseller, I don't ever mention her name, I don't need to, but I looked her up and she doesn't have a book out today.
Wow.
And I've never
You know what I
taken
mean?
that.
It's like-
I've never taken a creative writing class.
It doesn't have.
No, but I
The one I took to-
Right, didn't help you to be more creative,
I
right.
poured out my stories on each unit and then put them together, but spoke from my heart, and it flowed in my voice. And we all have a story to tell that will save someone.
I have two more things before we wrap up this important. There's something I have to mention about you that a lot of people don't know. Don't worry, it's a good story. It's one when you were 8 or 9 that your mom told me about.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Did you know it's in the book? I'm just joking.
Just say we talk.
That's good. Like, Mark, see, on the way here, you called on the way here.
One of them, it's very important. I want to talk about how, because just recently when you were able to forgive, you were holding the anger at Dr. E over here. But I don't know what you're going through, but I know sometimes, a lot of times, anger is like guilt in disguise. Would you agree with that in your situation?
I was able, and I'm not saying most people should do this. I have the ability to bend something and just leave it alone. And it's buried. I don't even give thought to it anymore. But our situation was Eric knew all of his paternal relatives.
Yeah.
Except for the father. So it's weird, but I go into detail more in the book of what happened. So I think I felt rejected at first and didn't talk about it. And so it was like, if you're not going to be involved, why would I spend any energy? And I'm not saying it was right, because it did create some serious problems.
Sure.
But I don't waste time on things that I can't affect.
So is that where, like, when you were upset about Eric sharing his stuff in the book and everything?
And he didn't really go into that. He spoke more on that moment.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Right,
it was just
right.
give a snapshot.
He's right. My book delves a lot more into my own beginning, our life, and us raising him to the point he left home. But no, I speak of some of the rejections and the hardships that we encountered, he and I, before we married, and even the issues that came with him being adopted. But no, I never felt any shame personally, because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't feel, based on all the information that I'd been getting.
So, but there was tension between you two for a while throughout this, like.
So you're talking about the book.
So
like,
yeah,
the tension of the book.
The beginning of the book.
Yeah, like later on.
He just said, what was the tension for you? Like when you were like.
Oh, when Eric shared the book. When Eric shared the book, I just thought it's personal stuff. But then the tension went away. Then Eric asked me to write the book, and we had a different kind of scenario. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want it to be a tell-all. But I didn't know what perspective to actually write the book on. Mm-hmm. But my daughter-in-law is the one that made it easy for me, as a matter of fact, and I really have to give a shout-out to Dee Dee. I bought my grandson a book when he was 2 or 3, and it was The Three Little Pigs. Everybody knows about The Three Little Pigs. But this version was written by the Wolf. Mm-hmm. Alexander Wolf. Same story, his perspective. And that was the premise, that I was able to finally decide how to write this book. From a parent's perspective, from my young mother's perspective, from being rejected with a kid, and all the things that we went through, but not be a tell-all or slander book.
Yeah, and I don't feel like either of yours, it's just helping
to
people.
Show women, it's a cautionary tale, I tell you, to show women, you get yourself into something, you have to know the end result. You cannot be a victim no matter what happens to you. In the end, you have to get up. And for the fathers who aren't in their sons' lives, and some other man comes in and steps in, he adopted Eric.
Yeah.
And the biological was very upset about losing his surname, but didn't do anything. And then when you come back, after being gone, sometimes till they're almost dead, there is a time or space that you lost that you can't recover.
Yeah.
And so it's for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have.
I mean, it's a lot in the book. It's a lot to tell these women, okay, you got kicked in the teeth. Just get up. Yeah. Because as long as you stay a victim, you are never going to make any traction. And for Eric's biological father, he was disappointed and angry.
Yeah.
He lost a lot.
Yeah, and I think
loss.
Yeah, I think for me though, when I look back, I think the tension was more not communicating more than what it really was. You know what I'm saying?
True.
For me, it was just tension in that there was just so many things that, as an adult, I realized my need to control. My wife and I, when we would have challenges and I sat down and we really thought about it, I was like, I'm not the dude that, I wouldn't consider myself a gorilla because I don't force my will on others. But I do have a very strong desire to control my own destiny, you know what I'm saying? Which is why I believe I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because when I worked, it was like, I love my job at Michigan State, I love the kids, but there were some things that I couldn't control. And it's like, I just feel like if I give you 120%, I should be able to control how much money I make. Like, you just give me a scale, tell me what I need to do, but you'll do everything you're supposed to do, but there's still a boss who can, whatever. So I think
the policies
So I think for me, it was more stuff I didn't communicate. And then when you don't communicate, it kind of escalates. And I think for me, it was the control. It's kind of like, I always felt like, and a parent, you have the right to do it. But as a child, I always felt like there are decisions you're making for me or things you're doing, but it affects you one way, but it affects me a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't affect me. So for you to have the ability to cut my father off, I told my mom as I got older, like, I don't know if we're gonna have a relationship or not, but I can't cut off me, because that's me. That's like 50% of who I am, is my DNA. It tells me why I do some of the stuff that I do. Even, I laugh and say, even when you go to the doctor, they want to know your medical history of your family. So even if you don't know your biological father or biological mother, you still have history, health history that's connected to that. Whether they're in your life or not. If they had a stroke, if they had high blood pressure, it was funny. They were talking about, I hope I said it right, but prostate cancer. And they were saying that the bigger part of it is really hereditary. Some people say, don't eat eggs, don't do that. And it was like, yeah, that's good. But if it's hereditary, you can not eat this or not eat that. You still have the probability for you to get it is greater. So for me, I had to realize that. But like what my mom said, that's deep. When you get mature, is you don't expect someone else to honor your reality, because it's not their reality. So if it's my blood, but it's not your blood, then I can't expect you to treat it like it's your blood when it's not your blood. You know what I'm saying? That's my responsibility. That's something that I have to do. And I think, again, that's what I said earlier, where people go wrong. A lot of the anger or frustration people feel is you're trying to make me live your expectations. Yeah. You're trying to make me live out your life. And I laugh. My wife will say to my son, like, yo, when you come home, she's like, yo, you got your coat there, you got your suitcase there. And he's like, yo, I hear this story about how when he's out, he's washing people's dishes, he doing this, he doing that. But when he come home, it's a total different kid. I said, no, it's not a total different kid. He grew up with you being his mom. Yeah. So whenever he comes home, he takes man off and he put boy back on. You know what I'm saying? Because you his mom. Yeah. So you were the one that always washed the dishes for him. You cook for him. You washed his clothes. So even though he's 23 years old, he come home, he expect mom to wash his clothes. Why? Because that's his expectations of you. And his expectations hasn't changed because he's 23. He still has the same expectation. You are his mom. And this is what, as a mother, this is what he knows. So I said, you can't get mad at him when he comes home and leaves all this stuff. Until the expectations change, until you tell him, I'm no longer happy with playing a role of your mom, then he's going to continue to think that. And so I just think if there's anything I like to say is that, for real, we have to sit down and change our expectations. And again, you cannot assume because somebody loves you, and it's so unfair. We feel like because somebody loves us, that what they believe, we should believe. Right. And it's like, yo, that's your reality. Yeah. That's something that's important to you. And that's something that you want. But that's not something that I necessarily want. Even my biological father, we have a relationship. But what he wants out of the relationship and what I want out of the relationship is two different things. Like, I'm healthy. I'm a grown man that's very successful. I've got a family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm whole. So what I would want for a person who wasn't there for you, he has more, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's real. Like,
it's almost like it has to be earned.
Yeah, well, he had more guilt in that because he wasn't there. So there's things that he might want to try to do that I'm like, oh, you good? You don't have to do that for me because I'm not on that. Like, I don't have any guilt. I was not there for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't have the same feelings guilt that you have. So, and I'm not mad that you are trying to do what you're doing, but if I don't receive it the way you want it, right. I even have my brothers, man, that are upset with me, and I didn't know why they were upset. And I realized, every time you watch a video, I'm dogging my man out. That's your father. Like, he was in your life. So he did go to your games. Like, he was at your birthday party. So every time you hear it, like, you have a hard time with me because you like, yo, you don't never have nothing positive to say about my man. It's like every time something come out your mouth is he wasn't this, he wasn't. I'm like, yo, I respect that. Like, I feel you. Like, you're right. If my son, every time they talked about me and they was dogging me out, of course Jalen would be hurt. Why? Because Jalen knows the good in me. Jalen just don't know the bad part of me. So again, I'm not mad at my brothers for that. I'm like, yo, I feel y'all. Like, I get it, and they're like, well, don't think everything was perfect, but whatever. So it's going to be tension between us because the person you love, I'm disrespecting that person. So that's why
you can't let it stop you.
Absolutely. If you're mature.
From doing that.
If you're mature.
Mature is right.
Yeah. And you communicate.
Fight and communicate, but from like continuing to do the dream in your
Absolutely.
heart. Because people you could overthink that and think this is causing tension. I better stop.
Yeah, I'm saying you can't, but you have to be mature enough, like I said, to understand, I see where my brother coming from.
Yeah.
I feel it. And when I'm around him, I definitely need to make sure that I'm respectful and I'm not just constantly just throwing out this, he ain't this, he ain't that. Because if I do that, then we're not going to have a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to want to deal with me. So I'm saying, that's why I said mature, and that you communicate. Now, I don't have to change my reality because you're not feeling my reality. I don't have to necessarily change it, but we should be smart enough as humans that if you're doing something by yourself in a house, but then 2 or 3 other people come in, like if you're upstairs by yourself, somebody comes in, you just can't stay upstairs by yourself. You have to be respectful, come down, speak to that person, whatever. So when we're with other people, if I'm with my sister who doesn't know my father and I'm saying something negative, she don't care. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm with my brother and that is his father, he loves his father, then he does care. So I'm not saying be fake, but if you're going to be in a healthy relationship, there has to be some compromise if you're going to be in a healthy relationship. And you can't lead with your reality. You have to now say, it's 2 of us in a place, what's our reality? And then you make your moves based on like I said, my wife's not here. My wife is not necessarily camera and like to be around folks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's not my wife. So I'm like, all right, you go to TJ Maxx. But if you guys weren't here and it was just my mom, even though my wife not necessarily a people person, she wouldn't go to the mall and not come in the house and spend time with my mom. You know what I'm saying? She wouldn't do that. But because it's strangers, she's like, I'm not entertaining that. I don't want to meet nobody. I don't want nobody to meet me. And I don't go, you're the worst person in the world. I go, I respect that.
My wife's just
I respect that you are more private, you're an only child, it was just you and your mom, you didn't grow up with a whole bunch of folks in your house. I respect that. So I won't go, you're an evil wife. How dare you, it's rude for you not to come in. No, it's rude for me to try to pull you in and make you who I am, because I am outgoing and I never met a stranger and I love to talk to people. So if people don't get anything out of it, it's not your story, my story, it's your story when you by yourself, your story when we're together, it's ours. And we have to try to find a way, to live in harmony, live in one accord. And when I was younger, I just wasn't into that. When I was younger, I was like, yo, you don't have a right, and yo, you just, and yo, and you did, and yo, don't talk to me like that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm thinking about me. Like I told my son today, I said, son, because yesterday I said something to him. He was like, oh, Dad, I hope we're not about to get back into that argument. So I just stopped. Then the day I told him, I said, listen to me. When you don't do something you're supposed to do, where I come from, you get punished for that. So I'm not really sure if we're going to have a relationship, I can't bite my tongue, and you can't act a fool. So what we got to talk about, what do we do? Because I don't want to scream, but if you're not listening to me, I'm not going to sit back and just hold my tongue. So what's the resolve? And we had a chance to talk intelligently, communicate effectively without escalating.
The emotion.
And so he said, Dad, well, this is what we probably need to do. I was like, absolutely, but I'm a parent. I'm not about to come down to your level. But I do understand you have a reality, I have one. But when we're together, I'm your father. I don't have to yell and scream because I don't think that's healthy. But I can't pretend like I don't see it a certain way.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to talk about how I see it, how you see it, and then come to result. Because you're right. You're not 8 years old no more.
Yeah.
You're 23 years old.
Yeah.
And while you may not necessarily be like, to me, a grown man, you are an adult and I need to treat you like that and respect you like that. But you need to respect me at the same time. So that's just my thing. I just want people to understand. You have your story, they have your story. But at the same time, if we're going to live in harmony, we got to find a way to communicate effectively and do it in integrity so that we can make sure that both parties, feel that their realities is being understood.
It's key. It's your own growth. And what I was saying to you before is to keep the relationship with them, be respectful, but not to let it to stop you from going after your dreams.
Absolutely. Because
people could think, well, I'll never talk about my dad again because that's going to make everyone mad. But like you were saying, you were respectful in the situation.
Yeah, and still respectful in that I became an entrepreneur, but in the back of my mind, I always had stability in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, yo, I'm gonna we just left the financial advisor and talked about, you know, what happens when we retire. My wife has a chronic illness, so I'm spending money to make sure that we have long-term care.
Yeah.
That's not something necessarily that, you know, we ever thought, but, you know, he said, hey, she may need it, she may not, but just in the event that she does, you want to be able to not have her at the hospital. You want to, you know what I'm saying? So I don't have a chronic illness at this point. My wife does, but I want to be respectful, you know, of that. So with my mom and her mom, I'm still thinking not number one motivational speaker in the world, making a lot of money. I'm still thinking insurance, and I did what they told me to do.
Yeah.
And when my wife got the chronic illness, it didn't cost me more because I did get insurance.
Sure.
When my wife had it, and I didn't necessarily need it, but I thought about what they said. Stability.
That's right.
You know, I got the insurance. I've got the 401k.
Yeah.
Now as a company, we have our own long-term. So I think you can tell your dream, but still be respectful of the people that are in your environment so that you don't gain your dream but lose everybody that you love. And I think you can find a way where you can do both.
And you've been doing it, and that was a thing that I wanted to let everyone know is because people see you speak, you're passionate, your heart, you're a great person, but after you spoke at Dreamshine, I don't know how it was, 3.5, 4 years ago maybe now. I just remember like I had my company growing, and then I was wanting to have this other direction of doing a book. And I reached out, and I was even going through like another level of my comfort zone that was causing a kind of a struggle between my wife and I too. And I remember reaching out, and like Eric, you called me back, and we're like talking about my wife, and I could hear like something in the background sound like a crowd. And then you were like praying with me, and I'm like, what is that? And you're like, oh, I'm getting ready to go up on stage, do an event. And you got off and went up there and did that. And I'm just like, I remember thinking like, wow, he took the time to take that call and like pray with me about that. You could have had every answer in the world. And I know you can't do it all the time for everyone, but
when
it shows the character. Yeah. And I just remember.
Your wife is from
Sierra Leone.
So I knew I had to, so I got to help him out. You know what I'm saying? I knew what he was going through at the time. So I was like, I got to stop right now. We have something in common. I truly understand. And again, like he said, you have your dream and your goal and something that Mark was very passionate about. But then he has his wife whose perspective is totally different because she's looking out for the family as, you know, meaning the children or whatever. And then we're looking out for the economics, and that's our protection. They have one type of protection. We have another. And so from man to man, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, I was like, yo, I definitely need to stop and address this because I don't want Mark, who I know he's going to make his dream become a reality. I just don't want him to lose his family in the process. You know, and we can easily do that because we are focused on the dream and the goal. That's our job.
Yeah.
So as entrepreneurs, we got to get each other's back and say, whoa, hey, bro, as an entrepreneur, I feel you 100% on this, but if you had your dream alone, how would you feel? Versus if you had your wife without your dream, how would you feel? You feel way better with your family without your dream than if you had your dream, but you didn't have anybody to share it with, you know? And he was receptive of that, and I could see it as he's moved forward. He's balancing it while I'm balancing it, and everybody else who's trying to do this entrepreneurial thing is trying to balance it out.
Yeah, we actually spent... Thank God from continuing to do that, we were able to bring her mom here from Sierra Leone, get her a full heart surgery. They opened her up because they don't have any hospitals, anything. They do, but it's,
not to live.
They did this amazing surgery, replaced her. They showed me a YouTube video of how it did it. We were able to help pay for that, take her in. She's been with us for months. She's going back and has spent so much time in her country too. So she's been able to see the flips, like that's like God, you know. So now you build that foundation more and more too. Yeah. But like you were saying, it's understanding from both ends of it too. And that's what you've done also. So did you both have that good communication and talk yourself out? Like now, both of you guys are good now with everything?
We are fantastic, yeah.
You've really built your relationship over the years, right?
We have repaired it, and it's probably better than it's ever been. Because
it was a long time ago too.
Yeah,
not nothing recently, but I never forget I was at Disney World, I think, and we had gotten into it, and we hung up and whatever. And for me, I was like, because I was with my family out at Disney World, and I think for me it was like, okay, E, you can control this, like, because I saw in the conversation as an adult now. I saw myself like it was an out-of-body experience. Like I saw myself and I hung up kind of like, yo, that's not what I wanted to do and that's not where I wanted to go. Like when I called, that's not where I wanted to go. Like, yeah, of course I do have something that I need to say, but I didn't want to go that route. And it was at that point I was like, all right, E, you got to do a better job of like not just being in the call, but managing the call. And I'm just being real.
It's the same as an owner too, like learning how to do with team members.
Yeah,
and stuff,
but I felt like with my mom, because she did have 14 siblings and she is strong, I saw where it was like strong. And I was like, okay, E, you gonna have to pull out. Like you gonna have to you gonna have to back off because it's never gonna go in the direction you wanted to go.
It wouldn't.
What you doing, like coming aggressive like this. And then you a son. So even though I know why you doing what you're doing, you don't really mean to do it like this. You know what I'm saying? So you really need to go. And I started reading like, what's his name? M. Scott Peck's book, The Road Less Traveled. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Walking to the Beat of a Different Drummer. He's a psychologist by trade. And so I started reading his book, and he was the first one to talk about taking ownership, stop playing the blame game. And I was like, yo, E, that's what you on right now. So it ain't gonna never go nowhere because you trying to get her to, it's like, no, you gotta take ownership, son. And so I started trying to just not avoid it, but when I would do it, it's like, okay, first of all, don't do it over the phone. Try to do more in person. When you do it, don't be all, sit down, don't be all aggressive, pull back. If your mom says something like, no, that's her perspective, you ain't got it, whatever. And then the other thing is the noise. So if you're hearing noise, like my little sister might say something to me, whatever, and I'm like, yo, don't even, whatever. Like,
let it go.
That don't have nothing to do with this. Like, stay focused on this, and just did that and communicated. And like, anything you do differently, that you started something different. So if you was digging a hole at first, then it's a hole there. But if you start putting dirt over it, now stuff can grow from it. So from that point forth, I think is where it was like, all right, let's grow. And even when we dealt with problems, because I'm married, and I always felt like, for real, if you're not careful, your marriage can be a point of contention. Because my wife is strong, and my wife is going to do what she want to do when she want to do it. My mom is strong, so I had to learn how to navigate. Like, oh, okay, E, you don't have to, whatever. If my mom say something, you ain't gotta. If my wife say something, you ain't gotta. You can do what you know you need to do and get it done. And then for real.
And have,
But then didn't even realize, like I said, this was the hardest thing for me. I had to realize, like, yo, for real, at the end of the day, this is not my mom, my wife's mom. So they not gonna have the same relationship. The same way my wife's mom is not my mom. And I used to get mad at my wife, like, why didn't you say that to your? And I had to think about, like, why would she say something to her mom? Like, that's her mom. Like, it's only been her and her mom her whole life. Her mom doesn't necessarily have a husband to go back to. You know what I'm saying? So she can't talk to her mom or do certain things to her mom, because once she's finished with her mom gonna be by herself. So you need to be the bigger person. Why do you even want her to say that to her mom? Like, for what reason do you even need to say it? You know she loves you and you know the relationship y'all have. So don't try to force her to treat her mom the way you want her to treat her mom for your relationship. That's her mom. You let her and her mom have her relationship. You have your relationship and kill it. And so I also, this would be another whole podcast, but there are things that you have to let go. I'm just saying there are things that you have to let go of in order to build something. And I think sometimes we try to hold on and build, and sometimes you can't do both. Sometimes you gotta let stuff go to build something, and that's going to be important too for those who watch this podcast, because we want you to literally go, whether it's your mom and dad, whether it's you and your spouse, you and your kids, we really want you to walk away from this podcast and be better in your relationships. And again, the only way to do that is some of the stuff you're still holding on to, you just got to let it go and say, that happened 20 years ago. That has nothing to do with today, and there's nothing we can do about it because it happened 20 years ago. But we can focus on how we build what we build right now and how we go, we move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add a little bit to that, because Eric was right. When we would clash, it would be, and I remember where I was at when we had the last conversation. My husband said, and my sister, we were visiting Vegas for a few weeks for winter, and I walked out the room. And when I came back, I was crying. And I said, this is never going to happen again. I will never cry again. But I didn't mean it. Eric wasn't going to make me cry. I realized I meant that I wasn't letting myself go there. And when I saw that Eric was reaching out, I had to soften. Because at first I was looking for this apology or whatever. And he was not. I still felt like he was blaming me because his biological father wasn't there and I had covered it up or lied, whatever you want to call it. But I said, I can't keep feeling this way. And I softened because he had an overture. Even though I didn't like the way he brought it to me, I was like, he is trying. And then when they moved here, it was like a game changer. I made a lot of overtures that I normally wouldn't. I'm more of a reactive person. I see what you're going to do, then I will act. But I became proactive, probably for the first time, really a lot. And when someone offers you a olive branch, you should take it. But some people want to say, oh no, it wasn't a big enough branch, or it didn't come the way I wanted, They didn't fall on their face. It's like, no, be smart enough to see. And then you take that, and then you build on it. And then we got more involved as a family to the point where we were going to church up there. And, you know, it went from hardly seeing the kids because just everybody's strong in this family. Everybody's a bulldog. And somebody had to be the poodle. You know, the poodle's quiet, but it's smart. And we finally all started working like that, and it went from him leaving home cussing and fussing to us just having the greatest relationship. And it just proves that no matter what happens, you can overcome it, but everybody has to do their part. And you don't always have to say you're sorry. Action speaks louder than words.
I think you just totally killed it for the better than I usually do the wrap up, and I think you just blew me out. No, that was spot on. That is spot on. And I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time, and you taking the time, both being here today, sitting down, talking about all this. This has been some good stuff. Like, I'm probably gonna watch it. It's gonna be some it's not right here. But let's let everyone know though. Is this available yet?
No, this is not just a cover. This is real. This is done. It's available. I think is it Mama T? Mama Thomas.com.
www.
.com. He said, "Shit, baby boom, she's www." It's gonna come off like that, regardless. I ain't mad at it though. That's the baby boom, no question that. www.
To the old people.
Right, to the old folks. Baby. I said babyboom.com.
He had to make sure he won up to your outro.
Yeah. So go there, look at the back. It's real. It's like this is the real book. All right, we've sold hundreds of copies already, so you want to go on. We just left San Diego, got some online, so you want to make sure that you get one. We only got 10,000 copies, so make sure you order yours. But again, go to mamathomas.com and you can order yours. And we got something special coming 2019. This is around curriculum. We're going to show her how to take this thing, turn it into a curriculum so she can really help mothers, and just anybody. It's just anybody who is trying to grow in any area. While definitely she calls the end of every chapter, give it to me again, mother to mother. But at the end of the day, it could be son to father, father to son. It could be, if you want to grow, this is a book about seeing where you are, making the adjustments. And like she said, it doesn't matter how you start, but through this content, you can finish strong. Thanks, Mark. And let's thank Mark for making the journey. Like, this isn't his living room. You know what I'm saying? This isn't his living room. This is Michigan. So I did wear my Cleveland Brown jacket, though, in honor of
I appreciate it. I lived in Colorado more. I So I'm good with that. But when I got here with Ohio plates, I think people were starting to give me those dirty looks already. So I made sure I didn't wear any Ohio State stuff.
Oh no, you don't want to do that.
So yes, thank you.
Well, you guys are going further up Michigan now. So we're Michigan State, the East Lansing, now you guys are headed to Ann Arbor. So hopefully Ohio State will do well in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, we'll be careful.
Yeah.
I'll get a little thing to change my plates or something.
Please, just cover them up on your way out. They're a little bit more aggressive than us Spartans in terms of their residents. So yeah, be careful.
But they said, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have the direct link to the books, the links to all of your stuff. You go to YouTube. Eric Thomas is everywhere. Mama T is about to be blowing the world up already. This has been some powerful stuff. Both their outros knocked it out of the park, and I love it. At the heart of it, like, keep going after your dreams. Be authentic. It takes more courage to do that. You're going to go through struggles. You may have some adversity in your family, but keep focused on the vision and the big picture. And I really want everyone to understand it's a lifelong journey. All three of us are still working out stuff. We don't just wake up perfect, and that's okay, as long as you can just keep growing. And it's a lifelong journey. So never settle, never give up, and keep elevating beyond.